We don't want to have an interpreter running in the browser. We don't want to have some kind of a VM, doing bytecode futzing. We don't want to be intercepting the calls that you make with your functions. We want to let that go through directly. We don't want to add too many special or any ideally special functions to the runtime, so that you have to require a Coffeescript library before your code will run. So this is a different philosophy than other compiled to JS languages like like Objective-J or Move, where in Objective-J, for example, if you perform a call against an object, it wants to mimic method missing, so it has to dispatch that through a special function to check if the function exists or not. But because the semantics of JavaScript are so flexible and so permissive, you can sort of stretch and smudge the language as you see fit. It's a great compilation target for experiments. And in fact, you don't even have to actually compile to JS in order to compile to JS in a manner of speaking. So for example, this is JavaScript. This is a def.js from Tobias Schneider, which uses some fun value of tricks to give you kind of a funny Ruby-esque inheritance syntax. And this is Fab from Jed Schmidt, which is an amazing library, actually. This is just vanilla JavaScript, right? All this is sort of a series of function calls getting chained together, passing in arguments. That looks very lispy, but it's actually just JavaScript. But we're not talking about compiling to JS here. But we are talking about compiling to JS here, not just using the existing JS parser. So this is some code that the Coffeescript compiler produced, and in a perfect world, it would compile to the same JavaScript you would have written in the first place. That's sort of the goal, as much as possible. So one attitude is that code like this isn't that hard to write, and it's true, it's not that hard. Lots of folks have their text editors tricked out to be filling out, the shorthand for setting a prototype chain, putting all the braces and everything you need. But at the same time, Dave Herman said this at JSConf this year, that we should have real compilers being a compiler. You shouldn't have to do it yourself. So what kind of language features are we talking about adding to JavaScript here? We're talking about significant white space and not having to sort of declare your intentions twice with white space and with braces. If you're indenting everything normally, that should be enough for the compiler to tell what you're doing, what you're up to. Everything as an expression is sort of the big semantic change that Coffeescript tries to make. Because we know how useful it is from languages like Ruby, where every construct in the language is an expression and can be assigned to a variable or returned as a result of a function, without having sort of strange statement expression dichotomy where you can't use some piece of a program inside other pieces just because of an arbitrary rule. So we try to do this as much as possible in Coffeescript, where everything that you can write has a value and you can use an expression. A bound function literal, so that you can declare a function with a lexical this, and this will not change inside the body of the function. You can pass it off as a callback. Class sugar for prototypes, right? Prototypes are a great sort of under-the-hood way of tinkering with how your objects inherit from each other. But in practice, you want to have the way that code works and sort of the nature of the beast. And I think this is something that speaks to Plato and not to JavaScript, is that you're going to have a user model or a person model or a window or an account or a browser. Even in the language, there's things like string, regex, function that are effectively classes, and you have many instances of them, and they all behave the same way, and they have different sort of data attached to them. And so it's convenient to have a class trigger that will set that up for you correctly. Loops become comprehensions, right? Because what is the value of looping over an object except for the result of the computed value of every single iteration of that loop? Structuring assignment, which is a fun idea that is also in the current proposals for the next version of JavaScript, where you can take a fancy JSON nested object and pull out the pieces that you're interested in into variables. And then a few more that I think I will skip over because we only have an hour for this and I want to have time for questions. And also, if you have questions about any of this as we're going, instead of waiting until the end, feel free to holler out or raise your hand. So let's get started with some real code. I'm going to try to mirror this. Switch on over to TextMate. Can everyone see that? Is that big enough?
Yeah.
See some nods. All right. So to get started with Coffeescript syntax. So here's a typical JavaScript function, right? We have a function called square. This is sort of my standard. Takes in a variable x as a number and multiplies it by the back result. So if we were going to say, what is the sort of minimal syntax for expressing this idea in JavaScript, what would it be? Well, first off, we can get rid of the semicolons, right? Between those, we can align them. We can get rid of the braces and use significant white space to get our attention. And we get rid of the bar because the first time that we use a variable as an identifier, it can handle that declaration for us. We don't need Right. So some things in JavaScript already work great, and there's no need